Hello YouTube, it's Lion here with Hobbies of Man once again, and today we are doing a One Piece video. Today we're going to be talking about what my favorite Straw Hats are, or rather more of a ranking of the Straw Hats up to the end of Marineford War. So like pre-Timeskip, I'm going to be talking about all of the 9 Straw Hats. I'm going to rank them from least favorite to most favorite, and I do want to clarify that this is my opinion. It's only what I think about them, and also it doesn't mean that I like and I don't like any of them. I think I like all of them. However, I like some of them more than others. And yeah, that's all of the disclaimers. Oh, I guess there's another disclaimer, which is that this is a spoiler-filled discussion. So I'm going to talk about everything that happens, everything that kind of has affected me and made me think of these characters the way I think about them. And so that's going to basically cover anything from Romance Dawn, book, chapter 1, all the way to the end of Marineford War, which is 597. So if you don't want spoilers, don't watch this video. So let's start at the bottom. Number 9 is Brook. Now, I think Brook is fun. I think he has a really good backstory with Laboon, and there's these kind of like offhand comments he makes that basically mean that he's ancient as fuck, right? I think there's this one where he says that he remembers this young upstart called Goldie Roger when he was sailing. So I think that's funny that he might have known Goldie Roger when he was a young lad. And I don't know, Brook is a great character. I like him a lot. But he's super new to the crew, right? He hasn't really had that much time to really develop and be a good character yet, because he hasn't done much. He has the whole backstory with Laboon. He helps out in Thriller Bark. And other than that, he helps Zoro out during Sabaody. He makes sure that Zoro's swords are not destroyed by, what's his name? The cyborg versions of Paw Paw guy. I can't remember his name. And yeah, Brook is number 9 because he hasn't really done much for me just yet. So it's not really that difficult to place him here. Out of all of the 9 great characters that are the Straw Hats, Brook is the one that I care the least about so far because he's the newest member to the crew, so he's automatically at the bottom. Then at number 8, I think it's Frankie, right? So Frankie is kind of similar to Brook, but he also ends up starting off as a villain. He's the bad guy. He's the guy in charge of the people that beat up Usopp. And I don't love that, but I also think that Frankie was a character that I was kind of going in knowing I wouldn't like. I had seen Frankie a lot before. I had heard a lot of things about Frankie, and I frankly, which kind of sounds funny because frankly, wasn't really sure that I was going to like him as a character. But, once we get introduced to him, and once I get over the fact that he's kind of really annoying early on, he's actually really great, as a member of the Straw Hats. I love that he built the Thousand Sunny. I love his, crazy Fortnite stair building abilities. I think that's great. I think he's a super useful character, but he also just hasn't developed that much compared to a lot of the other crew members. Again, it's also because he's very much similar to Brook in the sense that he hasn't been part of the crew for that long. Frankie's backstory was great, but that was more of the backstory of the old guy that he was with, and I think his name was Tom, right? And the backstory of Water 7 more than it is the backstory of Frankie himself, right? And I think it's great. There's a lot of good stuff about him, like the fact that he realizes that the Straw Hats understand each other and care about each other in a way that no one else does, and I really like that he is conscious of that, and I also like that he does a lot of sacrifice in order to help the Straw Hats during the Ennis Lobby arc, right? But again, Frankie just hasn't gotten enough development for him that makes me kind of like him all that much, and so he's down at number 8. Now, number 7, sadly, is Chopper. I can't put Chopper above anyone else on this list except for Frankie and Brook, because Chopper, while a great character and a very important part of the crew as the Doctor, is by far the least interesting member of the Straw Hats. Yes, he's a moose that has superpowers, and yes, he can turn into a human, and yes, he has super awesome abilities with all of his different points, and yes, he can become this Wendigo creature, but he's the least interesting character out of like the early Straw Hats. So he's down at number 7. He's just not as good as everyone else. I love him. He's super useful. He's super cute. I think Chopper is one of the cutest characters, and I love the byplay that he has with Luffy so much. It's great, but he's just not like a heavy hitter. He doesn't have a lot of emotion behind him. After you get past Drum Island, it's like, okay, well, that's it. Chopper's, kind of like emotional journey has completed because we finally got the Sakura leaves falling from the sky, right? So in this case, it's actually pink snow, but whatever. And so there's really not much more to him. He has some really great moments, like when he saves everyone at Water 7. It was awesome. And how the first thing that he wants to do is, heal everyone's injuries. But he's so messed up that he has to collapse, and other people have to take care of him. I like that a lot. I think he's a great character. He just doesn't have as much like emotional weight to me as the rest of the members. So that's the first bottom rung of characters here. Next is at number 6, Usopp. Now, I'm honestly surprised Usopp is this high on the list because I didn't really care about Usopp until Water 7. Like, Usopp was a character that was part of the crew, and he had a lot of funny moments, but he wasn't my favorite because I feel like his funny moments usually cut through the tension in a very kind of like MCU way, in a way where it's like, okay, we can't be serious. We just gotta, axe all of the meaningful, emotional stuff and just destroy it in order to make it like a light and easy to read series. And I really don't love that. It's honestly one of my least favorite parts of the MCU, but after 22 movies, I don't really care anymore that it happens. But Usopp was still kind of a character that I was trying to work around up until Water 7. At Water 7, I think that he really showed us so much emotional development, so much character development, so much power in who he is as an individual, not because he stood up for anyone or because he did anything, but rather because he was dealing with his own problems. And I love that. I think it's so interesting. I love that his personal sense of self-worth on the crew was directly related to the merry-go, because the merry-go was the thing that made him a relevant crew member early on in Syrup Village. I love that Usopp's dream is to be a powerful, brave warrior of the sea, and he basically accomplishes this in Enies Lobby, but because he was wearing his Sogeking mask, he doesn't believe it, basically. And I love the moment where he decides to fight Luffy. He knows he can't win. He knows that he's, it's going to be a useless endeavor. He knows he's going to lose, and he knows he's going to get hurt more so than he already has. But he wants to because he needs to stand up to his own problems, right? And he loses, and he's so ashamed that he has to wear a mask and be a different character in Sogeking in order to do something. But he's also so connected to the crew. As soon as Luffy tells him to shoot down the flag, he does it, no questions asked, no hesitation. Usopp was great in Water 7. And Water 7 really made me love him, and it really made me appreciate a lot of all of the jokes and different ridiculous things that he does, because he basically pushed off all of the doubts through his comedy. And also because he's the only sensible character in the whole crew. He's the only human that has a healthy level of fear about things that they do. And so he's the only person that basically tells anyone, hey, this is probably kind of too crazy for us to deal with. We should probably go. And I love that no one listens to him, but that he's usually right. So I think Usopp is a great character. He's one half of the normal human duo with Nami, and he's just really the heart of the team. And it took me up into Water 7 to realize that, because he's the character that everyone interacts with well, and also the character that makes everyone be able to connect with the crew, because no one has anything in common with Luffy, Zoro, or Sanji, right? Those guys are way too powerful. And Robin and Nami are too sad as characters for most average people. And Frankie and Brook are too weird, and Chopper's not even human. But Usopp has the right level of normal peopleness that makes him like the right character to connect with as an individual and put yourself in the shoes of to be part of the crew. So Usopp has a lot of value as a character, and I really like him a lot. But he's still not as good as all the other characters, mostly because Usopp just doesn't have that many cool scenes. The coolest scene was also when he basically got beat up by Luffy. So there you go. That's number 6. Number 5 is Sanji. Now, I really wish I could put Sanji up like number 2 because he's a chef and I like cooking, and I really like that his whole like hobby, his major character trait is he's the cook, and I think that's cool. But he just doesn't compare to all the other characters above him. So I really like Sanji because he's a cool guy, and he has a small but meaningful moments every time he's on the screen. So he's never usually like the main character of the arc, right? Like besides Baratier, he hasn't really been the main push or drive for the series, like ever basically. And I'm pretty sure he gets like a lot of development later, but so far he really hasn't. But he always has good stuff going for him, right? Like in Thriller Bark, he saves people, and he's like a funny character. And in Sabaody, he tries to take care of Zoro. And in Impel Down, sorry, in Enies Lobby, him and Zoro work really well together. And at the end of Water 7, when they're on the train, he fights that spaghetti guy and wins. And when he uses his Diablo Jambe thing for the first time, was super awesome. But he's never like the main focus of anything. So he's kind of like the middle of the road character. And that's why he's number 5. Like, I like all of the stuff he does, and I like him more than Usopp in general. But there's like nothing beyond that really pushes him into the top 4, top 3, right? So Sanji's kind of in the middle of the road. I really like him. I think his style is awesome. The way he looks is awesome. The way he fights is awesome. I love that he never uses his hands, so he's a purely kicking kind of guy. And I think he's really funny. I like his comedy a lot more than Usopp's. However, it is also much easier to be offended by Sanji's comedy because it's very much like a sleazy type of guy, right? So when it lands, it's a lot funnier than Usopp's comedy, but when it doesn't land, it's a lot more like, oh God, why is this even in here? Than Usopp's comedy, because Usopp's comedy is very like basic slapstick and visual gags, but Sanji's is a little bit more like concerning sometimes. But he's still, I think, better than Usopp. I like him more than Usopp. I think first impressions matter a lot, and my first impressions of Usopp were pretty lame. Because let's be honest, Syrup Village is probably the worst arc in the first saga of One Piece. And Baratier is probably the second best one. So I think that a lot of my feelings about Sanji and Usopp are very much tied to their first impression. And I just like Sanji more. So that's why Sanji is number 5. At number 4 is Nami. Now, Nami was my favorite One Piece character up until Water 7, yeah. I think everything in One Piece hinges around Water 7 for me. And Nami was basically my favorite character on the screen at all times, except when Vivi was around, up until Robin's backstory. Robin's backstory changed it for me, but Nami is number 4 because I think that she's a great part of the human duo with Usopp. The only people that are sensible enough and maybe not cowardly, but like have a healthy sense of self-preservation that no one else on the crew has at all. Brook is dead. Frankie doesn't care. Chopper just follows Luffy all over the place. Zoro, Luffy, and Sanji are psychos, and Robin is just along for the ride. So Nami and Usopp are the only ones that can really tell people, hey, this is kind of crazy. We should not do this. And of course, no one listens to them. But I think that I like her a lot because, one, she's that character in the story. She also has a lot of heart. I think that she's not the heart of the team like Usopp is, but she has a lot of the other side of that kind of character trait, right? So she is the one that helps everyone. She's also the one that like makes sure that everything works correctly on the ship. She's the only person that makes sure they arrive on the right place because no one else is able to. And she also doesn't have like she's not like the crew's mother or anything, but she happens to be like the character that makes the most like. She takes care of everyone in a very kind of like unnoticed way most of the time, and I like her a lot. I think she's great. I think her backstory is sad and meaningful. I love when she asks Luffy for help. I just every time Nami's on the screen, I'm really happy, and for the most part, that was the best part of Nami, and her sensibleness, her youthfulness, her smarts, her tactical thinking, the fact that she's like not evil, but basically very likely to just take care of herself first. Her ruthlessness, everything about Nami is great, but she loses a lot of points for me because she's never the most important character, like ever. She never is a meaningful part of the story. She has like the weakest villain to fight, and then she beats them well enough, but usually not that like impressively. And she's just kind of there because she was part of the crew originally, and there's no reason for her to leave. And a lot of times she kind of fades into the background, and I hate that. And so that's why, even though I love her a lot, she's number 4. She can't really make it into the top 3. So, yeah. Number 3 is Zoro. And Nothing Happened is like the best thing ever. Like, I think it's so cool. That scene saved Thriller Bark for me because Thriller Bark was the worst arc I read ever in all of One Piece. I can't think of any other arc that's as bad, and that includes Zero Village and like Long Ring, Long Land, which are the 2 other arcs that I don't like. And I think Thriller Bark sucked, but Zoro's just like Nothing Happened moment was great. I loved it. It was so badass. Zoro is such an awesome character. And what else? He just has a lot of good comedic moments where he's just like, okay, I gotta cut my legs off so we can escape this wax. And when he like runs in the opposite direction of people telling him to during Water 7. And he's such a cool guy. When he teams up with Sanji and they put aside their like bickering to make sure that everyone is safe is great. The fact that Luffy respects Zoro so much that anytime Luffy feels like they're in danger, he looks to Zoro to make sure he protects everyone else, and that Zoro does it. I love that Zoro, basically has a dream and is introduced as the one guy that's never going to give his dream up for anyone. And then he does it for Luffy like a lot, like very many times. And every time he does it without hesitation. And he doesn't have too much like arrogance and ego. He asked Mihawk to train him, even though Mihawk is like directly his enemy because he's a better swordsman than Zoro. And I don't know, so much about Zoro is just so cool, and no one understands him, like Nux Taku says. But like, he's just so cool, man. I just love Zoro a lot for that like cool guy factor, and Zoro has that in spades. So there you go. Number 2 is Luffy, because you can't go wrong with the main character. But I always feel like the main character is never the best character in the series, except maybe My Hero Academia, and that's only because I don't really care about that many of the side characters. But like, everyone on the crew is super important. Luffy is the captain of this crew, and Luffy has to be able to bounce off everyone equally in order for it to make sense. And Luffy just can't go wrong because Luffy is great. He's an awesome character. He has a very weird morality that is always consistent, but also like not good or bad. Like, he has a lot of moments where he's a good person, and he has a lot of moments where he's basically an asshole and a shitty person, but they're consistent, and so he's really good character because of that consistency. And you also can't just ever like think he does anything bad. Like, he's never actually done like anything that is like morally horrible. There's a lot of things that he's done that are morally ambiguous, but he's never like an evil character, even if he does things that are wrong. And I love that. I think Luffy is such an interesting character. There's so much about him that I want to learn. There's so much about him that I want to understand. But I think that his like main characterness, the fact that he has to be kind of like slightly less defined than everyone else, makes him like less interesting. I would put him as number 1 otherwise, but for now, Luffy is number 2. Maybe at the end of the series, Luffy will be number 1. But this is always like how I feel about main characters and stories. Naruto's not my favorite character. Naruto, What else? What other kind of stories is there? Saint Seiya is not really my favorite in Saint Seiya, although he's one of my favorites. And you know, stuff like that. Like the main character is not necessarily always the best character, because he has to have a lot of this kind of like general, like easy to connect with kind of vibe to him, right? And I think the same is true for Luffy. So number one is, by process of elimination, Robin. Now I love her so much because I love her backstory. Her backstory made me cry like a bitch, and I am not afraid to admit that, because Robin's backstory is so sad. When she is mistreated and she's basically treated horribly by everyone in her village except for the scholars, and when she wants to join her mother and be part of her mother's like fear of things she cares about, so she learns to read the poneglyphs, and so she learns to do this, and when she's supposed to run away and she says no, and she asks her mom if she remembers her, because, you know, oh God, I'm about to cry if I keep talking about it, but everything about Robin is beautiful. Everything about Robin is great. The introduction of her as a badass villain, assassin, was awesome. The fact that at the end of Alabasta, she's like, Luffy, you saved my life when I wanted to die, so now you're in charge of it. You have to make sure that I have something to live for. And then eventually this kind of becomes true. At the end of Enies Lobby, Robin yells, I want to live, after having repeatedly told Luffy she wanted to die. And she wants to live so badly that she ruins her teeth by sinking them into concrete so she can't be dragged away. And, oh my God, man. Robin is such a great character. I love her so much. She's my favorite character in One Piece. My favorite saga in all of One Piece is Water 7. And the fact that Water 7 basically revolves around Robin for the majority of the time just makes her even a better character. And there's just so much about her that makes me super sad, but also is like, wow, I can't believe that she's still willing to live after all of this shit that happened to her. And there's just so much good stuff, and so much stuff that just like ruins you emotionally, but also like makes you really like want to like see Robin succeed. Robin is my favorite character in One Piece, hands down. There's only a few other characters that are like up there, but Robin is number one. And man, Robin is my favorite Straw Hat by far. She like outstrips every other Straw Hat so much. Robin is the best character in One Piece, like hands down. I love her so much. I've been watching a lot of Murphy Napier videos, trying to, you know, prepare all of these lists of all of these videos that I want to do. And every time she talks about Robin's backstory, I immediately cry, and I just feel like so sad, but also like so like, what's it called, connected to the character. I love it. It's so good. Very good stuff. Robin is my favorite character, and that's like the end of the video. So yeah, what are y'all's favorite characters? How would you rank the Straw Hats? How would you say, you know, Luffy and Zoro and Sanji and all of them compared to each other? What would your personal list be? Let me know that in the comments, and thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thank you guys once again. See you guys later.